Hello, and welcome everyone to another episode of the Soul and the Body Show. I am the author Curt Williams Jr., but you can call me Curt, spiritualist, hermeticist, and metaphysician. Now, in the first portion of my book, Ungodly Gods, we went through how God created himself. And then he created Mother Nature. And then the Big Bang, the creation of the universe. Then there was the dinosaurs and the comet and an angel hive. Well, now we're getting towards the end of phase one and ready. Phase two, you're going to have to hold on to your seats. Welcome to the show.
If you should awaken, I will be there when you wake from your lovely
Welcome back and thank you for being here. And please subscribe. Now, we've gotten into the beginning of the book. The reason I wrote the book this way was because the book is so serious. I know I'm going to be confronted by a lot of biblicists and historians, and they're going to keep asking me the question over and over. Do you believe in God? Well, that's why I dedicated the first 12 chapters to God and exactly what he is. Going into it further than the Bible has ever gone into it. So, we know where God came from, we know where Mother Nature came from, and the universe and how it was created. We haven't gotten into the metaphysics of the principle of mentalism. That's the one that describes the quantum physics of the universe. The way to explain this is you have a creator, a father of the universe. How can a father be completely fair to all of his creation? Well, quantum mechanics. See, what quantum mechanics does, it tells us that information travels in the form of waves. Where God is concerned, all opportunities, all option, all information is within the stream of the wave. Then the individuals who observe the waves break that down into discernible patterns. It is quantized. It is now broken down and lined up. Now, it's important. The mentalism aspect has to do with the fact that depending upon the mind of the observer will come the outcome of the wave. For instance, let's just say I'm the worst criminal in the world, and that's how my mind works. Well, when this unlimited wave comes towards me with all this information, I'm probably going to pick out the things that I'm going to need to succeed in the mindset that I have. I'm going to pick out the other criminals I need, the kinds of activities I need, the kind of weapons I need if I'm a criminal. Now, If I'm a benevolent person and I love people and I love working with people, I'm going to pick those things out. What God does is He gives everything within the stream of the waves, and the individuals that observe the waves break it down into its particles. So God's not responsible for how you observe the waves. You're responsible for that. You and your mind, as your mind elevates, you are able to pick out better things, so to speak. If your mind is infantile, well, you will pick out infantile things. If your mind is beautiful and wonderful, you will pick out wonderful things. That's God's way of being fair. It's not His fault if your life is miserable. He didn't choose that. It was actually your brain that chose you to do that. As a spiritualist, I'm connected to my spirit. I'm led by my spirit. My spirit tells me what to do, and I believe everyone can do that. That little voice you hear inside, that is you trying to communicate with you. You're giving the wrong credit to if you're thanking angels for that voice. It's not angels. It's you. It's who you really are. It's your true aspect. And that aspect that I'm speaking of is the closest you will ever get to God, because it's created to God. It's connected to God. It is connected to God and connected to everything else. That's the spirit, that's the voice that told me to write this book. That's the spirit that told me to go on this particular journey that I'm on. It is now time to move on.
Chapter 10: The Comet.
Sad only describes the extinction-level event bestowed upon the beautiful Tiamat. Total and complete was the devastation that had not occurred on any other inhabited planet. 50 miles in circumference was the size of the impact crater alone. Oceans burst waters hundreds of miles into space, while quakes shifted back and forth and back for weeks and weeks. Clouds like 100 bombs of hydrogen streamed far above the planet's atmosphere. As a great cloud blanketed the entire planet from pole to pole and around its center, blocking the light of Apsu for years and years. Not only was this the first event of its kind in this system, but in any system, anywhere, throughout this astronomic, holographic, cosmic creation created by God. Things would forever be incommensurable, having no common standard of measure. Now, his prime directive of non-interference would be challenged greatly, as the devastation was tremendous and shocking, abhorrent even to God. With omnipotent understanding and supreme wisdom, God knew that all things would come together for good, while ever so long and ever so loud were the cries of the mother of all nature. The enormity of suffering was not limited to just the mother and God, but to all particles of matter throughout the galaxy. All is connected through correspondence, and all systems of existence affects all existence, everywhere, forever. For years, the wonderfully magnificent Tiamat could not be seen through the dust and debris as the clouds covered all planetary bodies within 100,000 kilometers. So dense were the clouds of debris that the strongest rays from the sun Apsu could not shed light of any measurable amount upon her. Apsu would strain greatly to bring the heat to the sudden cooling from the dying of the light upon the suffering Tiamat, his love, his soul, and his life's companion. For months and months, he wrapped blankets of heat around her to ease her pain and the pain of the mother of all nature, only to be forced to understand the true meaning of the concept futility and its exacting insensitivity. Mother Nature's presupposition of life was destroyed. Yet, God knew that to take away the mother's pain would be to take away her understanding of life in this all-encompassing corporeal holographic program. To feel the pain, to understand the suffering and the reality in this system and its mortal human corporeal existence created by God would be greatly expanded. This event would add cognizant assimilation to the spirit of the mother of all nature. This was only the beginning. Calamities were certain to be had in this complex material existence. So too were the herds of angels that were like conquered legionnaires, some of who lost not only their wings, but damaged their bodies by both frost and heat. Angels do not reincarnate, nor do they evolve physically, so their fear is that they may stay in this condition forever crippled by their efforts. They journeyed back from whence they came, limping, and some even crawling, holding on to other unfortunate angel spirits. On Tiamat, life slowly came to a crawl as stumbling herds of all species, large and small, fought to survive the surface of this now frozen tundra. Blinded was a multitude of creatures whose eyes still burned from the streak of light that crossed the sky before impact. Large groups of reptilians lay dormant, while other large animals, unable to find food, rapidly declined. If there were no change, there would no longer be life of any kind on Tiamat the Magnificent. Many species on the planet, large and small, would eventually meet their inevitable fate and fall victim to the inconceivable cooling. However, most resilient were the thousands of species of the oceans and seas, for they would travel deeper and deeper into the oceans, that they may conquer and exist still, the chill notwithstanding. Greater still were all species whose lives could be restored after being frozen in time. Like an enormous, inconceivable, yet successful endeavor in cryogenics. The news of this was unexpected, yet a pleasant gift from God to be bestowed upon the mother of all nature on her 100 billionth birthday, give or take a few billion. Suddenly, the mother of all nature lurched forth her ethos. She had a plan.
What if the angels could come forth, bringing more angels and more angels? I could rage extraordinary, unforeseen, massive amounts of winds and weather and cleansing rain. And the angels could grab debris.
She cried.
And God, if you could gently open one of your magnificent and mysterious yet mystifying and ubiquitous singularities, with no harm to the oceans and the mountains and the trees, of course, we will rid this place of all this contemptible and most despicable calamitous event.
And so God agreed, and the angels did flock in droves to help life on Tiamat. It had been days since the stellar disaster, but perhaps there was still time to repair the damage. And so it came to be. By the time the angels had arrived, the mother had already mustered up all the wind she could. Like a 500-mile-per-hour hurricane, she did unleash upon the planet, and the air began to float. Ever so swiftly did the clouds and debris begin to move throughout the atmosphere, as the angels did gather by hand all that they could carry.
Now,
She cried out to God.
now, the singularity.
Suddenly, a circulating event horizon began to appear in space, and just as she planned it. Amazingly, a black hole began to draw in clouds and debris. All seemed to be going well when suddenly a scream, and yet another scream. Then, in a blink of an eye, angels began to disappear, one after another, into the singularity. Rapidly, they began to be pulled into the black hole as the mother cried out,
Stop, stop, my angels, my poor angels.
But it was too late. Many angels were gone, sucked in like a whirlpool as the singularity received them totally. The mother of all nature was devastated. It had become one sad thing after another. She found it impossible to hold back the tears as they flew from her face, appearing like waters draining from the heavens. Then God spoke to her.
Gone? Yes. Gone forever? Well, no. Just back to the place where they came from originally. Without harm, I might add. And of those angels wounded by the comet, like a time machine, they too will be sent through the black hole, ending in the place they were before the event, and restoring their bodies to their original splendor.
The brilliant plan was not completely lost, however. This most significant and paramount recovery would be quickened by the undying love of the sun Apsu to his beloved Tiamat. Like a warm blanket, Apsu sent hot rays of sunlight to all portions of Tiamat, and like the first genesis of corporeal life did begin to restore itself, just as it did in the primordial oceans and the rivers and the ponds. Great dinosaurs would give way to things with wings, and animals would appear in the jungles and plains, on continents that would someday be called Africa, Asia, Australia, and the Americas. The beast did roam again in the forest and the woods. Once more, Tiamat was restored to the jewel it once was, the most precious in all the galaxies.
Welcome back. Welcome back. Now, the next chapter is called Dimensions. Dimensions are realms that are separated by things in your head that allow you to observe that particular projection. Right now, we see in 2 and 3 dimensions. We see flat and we see a little depth. Whereas if you saw in 4 dimensions, it would be like seeing something from the front and from the back at the same time. So here we go, towards the end of part 1, Dimensions.
Chapter 11, Dimensions. More than 16 billion years had gone by, and a comet found its way to Earth, changing the course of the planet forever. Civilizations had for millions of years sprouted up all over the inner mind of God in the form of solid-state holograms that could be designed in any form and out of any material that exists. Because all of existence was being organized by the mainframe that was the mind of God, it was only inevitable that civilization was based on not only carbon, but rather silicon and metallic as well. and the metallic, robotic beings manufactured themselves rather than reproduce biologically. Almost like a factory with an assembly line, beings and all things were produced and reproduced in rapid sequential realities. Instead of blood, it was fluid. Instead of joints, they were linkage and hydraulics. Beings that exist in a metallic universe had zero growth as individuals, yet excelled as a collective. One mind per region, one perceptual thought for all in a particular unit. In a silicone-based reality, the similarities between that of a biological were indistinguishable upon appearance. Because silicone sits just below carbon on the periodic table, silicone, just like carbon, can form bonds with like molecules, leaving a host with no aesthetic differences. Other variations of existence are that of liquid, beryllium, and non-nuclear space. All variations exist in the mind of God, yet are separate by dimensions. These dimensions cannot be crossed as long as the physical aspect still consists of the molecular structure of the One. Only beings that have discarded this physical aspect have the ability to traverse across dimensions. All land masses on all planetary structures have corresponding heavenly dimensions. These dimensions are also non-negotiable without the proper vibrant freight associated with said heavenly realm. Superior spiritual beings, such as archangels, are the only beings to have the ability to traverse all dimensions. Not only can archangels travel into corporeal space, but they also possess the amazing ability to create an interpseudo-physical biological unit, although the size of the unit may be inconsistent because of the spiritual bandwidth of the angels. God gave this ability to angels under certain circumstances and the promise that the angels maintain an expectable level of control of their physicality. God Almighty would allow this experiment knowing full well of its outcome and looking forward to their exacting repercussions. These consequences would come in the form of a commitment towards the assistance in the pursuit of spiritual wellness by the angels for all of creation.
Thank you for coming. I enjoyed you being here. Like I said, Sunday morning is a good time to teach. I got that from my Uncle Merkel. And something else I got from him I'd like to add, because he's passed away, but there's a lot of aspect of him that needs to keep on living. He used to say something in church, and it was, he would say to turn to the person next to you and tell them that you love them, whether they like it or not. Well, I kind of like to carry on that tradition. It's a Williams tradition. If it's three boys, don't mind. Anyway, thank you for watching. Our next episode, we're about to get very serious here. This first part has been fun and games, but the next part is where we're going to get into the deep. Let me be perfectly honest with you. What we live in would be considered a hologram. What a hologram is a projection. It is a projection. It is a projection that is basically orchestrated from a computer system. What we know is that God is a computer system. His brain works just like a browser. There is nothing on the earth that is here that is not already within him. Don't think mankind is the only thing with a computer. The Creator is a computer, but it's a special kind of computer. It is a computer that knows where every single molecule is in the universe. And because he's omnipotent, he also knows where every single molecule is going to be. Before the molecule comes into being, he knows what the molecule is going to do while it's here, just like he knows what you're going to do while you're here. When I say we live in a hologram, it would be considered a solid state hologram. A solid state hologram, simply because the molecules here are so close together, they form bonds that create solid objects. There is still air and distance in between them that God can recognize, but if you squeeze, picture this: a pattern, a tapestry with fabric lines going this way, threads going this way, and then threads going this way. What you get is a cross pattern, this way and this way. Fabric. Now, you would be looking at a two-dimensional object because it has no depth. Imagine if it had depth. So not only is the fabric going this way and this way, but the fabric is also going this way. And the fabric is also going this way, until the fabric is nothing more than a dense block of lines. That is your matrix. And these molecules are hopping from one line to the other. But the computer system within God knows where every single molecule is and where every single molecule will be. This is why when I say we live in a hologram, I'm saying that we live in a hologram from the perspective of the Creator, not from our perspective. From our perspective, we live in a universe and a world with mountains and trees, and it's not ever going to be a hologram to us because we are a part of the hologram. It's akin to a cartoonist creating a Bugs Bunny cartoon, and all of a sudden Bugs looks up at the writer and says, "Hey, who are you?" What do you mean, who am I? I'm the one that made you. You made me? Why? See what I'm saying? Now, we can ask God. We're conscious enough to ask why you made us. But the Bugs Bunny in the cartoon is actually seeing the person. We can't really see God because we can't conceive of something of that on that level of anything you want to call it. You can call it energy. You can call it whatever it is. We don't even have the words. All we can do is look at the whole. All we can do is examine how the whole thing works. But to him, this is a hologram. To us, it's called life.